At 11:30 p.m. on March 30, 2024, an alarm tripped at a nondescript warehouse on Roxford Street. The LAPD responded, circled the dark building, and saw nothing out of the ordinary. They filed it as a false alarm and drove away. That routine decision cost someone $30 million. The target was a GardaWorld facility. It lacks the signage and public presence of a traditional bank because it serves a different function. It is a cash vault, a highly secure warehouse acting as a shadow banking hub where Southern California commercial businesses consolidate, sort, and store their physical currency. The thieves specifically waited for Easter Sunday. Over a long holiday weekend, commercial banks run on reduced schedules and vault warehouses operate with minimal skeleton crews. At the exact same time, restaurants and retailers are depositing massive volumes of holiday cash. By the time the staff opened the vault on Monday morning, the crew had completely vanished with up to $30 million in physical currency. That staggering sum instantly made this the largest cash vault robbery in United States history. The commercial security industry relies heavily on anonymity, deliberately keeping the true function of these buildings hidden from the public. By actively avoiding attention, they inadvertently gave a professional robbery crew a quiet, unscrutinized playground to operate in. This diagram tracks security alerts at the Roxford facility over the previous year. In the 12 months prior to the heist, 13 separate alarms were triggered, and 12 were ultimately dismissed as false. Criminologists call this alarm fatigue conditioning, a tactic where a crew deliberately triggers systems over months to train local police and dispatchers to ignore signals from a specific address. Because the ground-level doors were heavily fortified, the crew bypassed them entirely. They scaled the exterior of the building and dropped directly into the facility through a rooftop access hatch. Once inside, they severed the building's Wi-Fi connection. This targeted strike immediately took all cloud-connected surveillance cameras and internet protocol alarms completely offline. The crew then deployed a commercial Wi-Fi jammer to blanket the immediate area in a dead zone. With the electronic defenses neutralized, they went to work on the vault itself. A resident in an adjacent mobile home park reported hearing a mechanical grinding noise for over 2 hours in the middle of the night. The thieves favored patient, professional drilling over loud explosives. A year of alarm conditioning turned the LAPD's own protocols into a tool more effective than any physical lockpick. The crew weaponized the department's standard operating procedures to secure their entry. Cracking the vault is only the first hurdle. Stealing physical cash requires moving massive, heavy bulk in absolute silence. Look at this scale to understand the sheer logistics involved. $30 million in standard $100 bills weighs roughly 660 pounds. Since commercial vaults typically hold a mix of much smaller denominations, the actual haul likely weighed over 2,000 pounds. Hauling a ton of paper vertically out of a roof hatch is physically impossible for a small crew. Instead, they bored a body-sized hole straight through the facility's exterior concrete wall, allowing them to load the cash directly into a staged vehicle outside, knowing exactly which roof hatch to use. Understanding the building's Wi-Fi architecture and successfully bypassing the vault's seismic sensors requires highly restricted institutional knowledge. Experts widely agree this points directly to an inside job. The previous record holder for a cash theft in Los Angeles was the 1997 Dunbar armored robbery. That operation was explicitly orchestrated by a fired safety inspector who retained the facility's floor plans, camera locations, and staffing schedules. Professional tools can easily cut through a concrete wall, but completely neutralizing a multi-million-dollar alarm network without triggering an armed response requires an enemy within the company. The physical extraction is over. Now the crew faces a much harder problem: laundering $30 million in stolen physical currency. Modern banking features strict anti-money laundering protocols. Any cash transaction over $10,000 legally triggers a mandatory currency transaction report, sending an immediate flag to federal authorities. Criminals often try a tactic called structuring, where they make multiple smaller deposits to stay under that $10,000 limit. However, banking algorithms actively hunt for structuring, and the behavior itself is a highly trackable federal crime. This is exactly how the Dunbar crew failed. Their meticulous plan collapsed 2 years later simply because one member paid a real estate broker with cash that was still wrapped in its original, traceable Federal Reserve bands. The crew executed a flawless physical extraction, but the modern financial surveillance net renders their mountain of paper cash essentially unspendable. Over a year later, the investigation remains deeply frustrating for law enforcement. Despite joint task forces between the FBI and the LAPD, there are no publicly named suspects, 0 arrests, and not a single dollar of the cash has been recovered. The legal exposure hanging over the crew is severe. Federal bank robbery and money laundering charges carry devastating prison sentences, and in many of these cases, there is no statute of limitations. As one retired investigator noted, the FBI has an infinite memory. They will patiently monitor local real estate purchases, business investments, and lifestyle changes for decades if necessary to catch a single anomaly. The crew might believe they pulled off a successful heist, but their true punishment has already begun, a life sentence of paranoia, forever racing against the shelf life of every single dollar they attempt to spend.